and relax. I get nervous when this happens.
Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast. Episode 3. So, we'll see if this works. James should be over there to my left, which he won't be. Paul might be down. Depends how this records. Say hello. Sorry, James. Say hello.
Hello.
Yeah, James usually waves hello, but it's a podcast. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm not bad.
Good. Hello, by the way.
Oh, hello.
So,
I forgot my lines.
You've fluffed it already, mate. We'll have to start again. No. Right. Today we're going to talk about habits. And we're not talking about like picking your nose or anything like that. We're talking about building habits to get the result that you want, basically. This was James's idea for this podcast. We'll have a little chat beforehand and what we're going to be talking about. James was like, let's talk about habits, and he looks at this a lot. So James, over to you over there, which will be over there, but never mind. You can get started.
Okay, yeah, well, no, I thought it would be a good topic to talk about fairly early on in the podcast, so obviously week 1, it was about potentially how to get started. Week 2 was lessons from lockdown. And today I just thought habits is such a broad, massive subject that I know that the three of us work regularly with our members and with ourselves, obviously, as well. So I thought it was worthy of a kind of a half hour or so discussion around it, to help the listeners understand the importance of habits in making any long-term sort of sustainable lifestyle change, because most people, I think the polar opposite, I suppose, of habits would be willpower. This idea that you can will yourself to make change in your life, and you're constantly kind of swimming upstream, and you're fighting a losing battle to, say no to the packet of crisps, or to say no to the extra slice of cake or whatever. And it's a very, living that kind of lifestyle purely on willpower is very, very difficult to do, and is almost impossible to make last. So I know that you guys are really into this kind of side of things as well, and behavior sort of change for the long term, which is what we're about. We're not after, a quick fix and then just, people will return to where they were before. We want to create long-term sustainable change in all of the people we work with, and with the listeners as well. So I thought it would be a worthy topic to spend some time on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how do you deal with it with your guys then? What sort of things do you do?
Well, basically, I think that the thing that I really try and reinforce with people that I work with is that, and we all know ourselves, is that you can only really build on success. So you want to try to start getting some quick wins or some small wins in early, which gives them people the confidence to think that they can actually do this. It's having that sort of I think it's self-efficacy or something, or some kind of word like that, whereby they actually start to get that self-belief. So whether that is starting the day off, properly, or just with something, even, I can't remember if it's David Goggins or one of the other kind of guys talks about making your bed first thing in the morning. Wake up and the first thing you do is make your bed. And if you achieve nothing else the rest of that day, you've achieved something that, within the first 10 minutes of being up. But then if you can layer on top of that, making your bed, and then maybe having a pint of water first thing in the morning, then that's good, and do that for a little while. And then maybe the first thing before you do anything, you may go out for a walk for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. So it's these small habits that are kind of quick wins, and they're easy wins. But I really try and get people to adopt just something very, very, and it's almost seems too easy. It almost seems like it's not gonna have any impact, but it's really just, if you can set yourself something, even if it's making your bed in the morning or having a pint of water first thing in the morning, you can build on that then. And then, you know, because I know probably you guys as well, you get someone maybe comes in to see you who's not exercised for 30 years or 20 years. They're not in a very good place, maybe physically and emotionally. But they walk through the door and think they're suddenly going to have a cast iron will, and they're going to train 5 days a week, and they're suddenly going to be perfect with their diet and perfect with this and that. So it's very often, I think one of you said on the last podcast, I think, about a lot of what we do is actually dialing it down a bit and actually reining people in and maybe taking them to take a step back and say, well, actually, is it realistic that you're suddenly going to train 5 times a week, considering you've never trained for the last 20 years? You know, maybe we try and start with something more manageable, start with something more achievable, and then we build on the success of that, even if it is having a pint of water and doing 5,000 steps a day, you know, whatever that may be. So there's just some examples there, you know.
Yeah, I like that. But and what you said about it being really easy, because like you'll give someone a habit, like say make your bed in the morning, have a pint of water, go for a walk, whatever it is, something dead simple. And they might just think, well, that's not going to work. It's too easy. So they won't do it. And then, so you might see them a week later or whatever and go, has it worked? And they'll go, well, no. Did you do it? Well, no. And it's like, okay, go away and do it. And then sometimes it takes 3 or 4 weeks to get someone to even just do something simple. I had a guy who, I gave him some breathing exercises to do, right? And then on the Monday, did you do them? No, I didn't have time. And I was like, you're joking. It was literally just breathing in and out, right? Like just, you could do it when you're trying to go to sleep, right? And he didn't have time, you know, so silly little things like that, but keeping it simple. There's a lady who I work with online and have been for a few years. So she's been doing really well, but every now and then she just kind of like disappears, you know, for a couple of weeks. And it'll be, you know, everything will get on top of her. There's some sort of stress or something like that. And I was talking to her once and she said, you know, I basically had been talking around WhatsApp and said, you know, just go for a walk or something like that. She said, you always make this sound so simple, and it's not. It's very complicated. And I was like, okay. And then we're on a Zoom chat, and you know, she was a bit stressed. And I said, well, where's the dog? And she went, well, he's down there. She showed us, and he goes, look at him. He looks really sad. I was like, when was the last time you took him for a walk? And she goes, oh, well, like a couple of days ago, you know, because I've been busy and all that. And I was like, what are you doing now? Nothing. And I was like, right, we're finishing this call. Go take the dog for a walk for half an hour, and then text me when you've finished to tell me how you're feeling. She went out for an hour and a half with the dog. He was jumping in puddles and all that, and he had a great time. She came back and she was like, that was great. It was really, we had so much fun. And I was like, that's why I make it sound so simple, because it is that simple, you know? So this is exactly what you were saying. It's one of those things you look at it and go, no, that's too simple. How can I make it more complicated? Or I'm not going to do that because it won't work. That's what people tend to think. In my experience.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And one of the sayings I like as well, I think Les Brown, might have said, but I'm sure it's been said by lots of people, is, you know, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great, you know. So
yeah, exactly.
Literally just take that first step and just do something, and you have to start somewhere, you know. And if you're starting from the beauty of a lot of the people that I work with, if they are starting from a very low place, if you like, or a very kind of you know, like I say, not exercised for 20 years, maybe carrying, you know, quite a bit of additional weight, you know, not eating very well at all. The only way is up, really, isn't it? You know, so anything that you do, it's kind of low hanging fruit. Anything that they kind of start doing is going to be making an improvement, and they will start to feel better. So, yeah, it's just do something, you know, get moving and do something. Yeah.
Yeah. We all know at our age we've got low hanging fruit, haven't we? So there you go. Paul, moving on. Paul, what about you?
I don't know how to follow that.
That wasn't segueing to Paul for any particular reason, by the way. I just say things that pop in the
These are the things you think about.
Yeah, these are the things that keep me awake at night.
Right. Well, on a different note, so I mean, it's good to hear you guys talk, because you kind of express a lot of the things that I try and communicate to my clients, and the way you know, it's interesting to hear how you're articulating it, really, because it's similar principles, and it's good to hear your perspective on it. I'm always aware that when I sit down with a client, that they've come in because of probably my 28-day program, because that's what's kind of on Facebook, that's kind of on my website, that's kind of nice bite-sized marketing thing that just says, oh, I can do something in 28 days. And essentially it goes to what you're saying, James, where you're saying you just want to get some momentum up. You want to, because everyone comes in, they say, I don't have any motivation. No one ever has motivation. I certainly was not motivated to train today. I was tired, whatever it was, and I got it done. But inspiration happens as a consequence of momentum. So through action, eventually you will be inspired or feel passionate or whatever. I mean, I've worked with, many years ago, before I was a personal trainer, I worked with musicians, and the difference between a musician who was waiting for inspiration to hit them and those who just got in at their studio at 9 a.m. and worked till 6 p.m. They just played and played and played until eventually they came up with song. And through that practice, constant reinforcement of the skill with songwriting, they would come up with a great song. But if they just sat there going, well, where's my next hit? What you end up with is they end up relying on other people to do the work for them. And I think what we realize is that our job is to be a catalyst for change, to be a guide, but that's driven by the individual. So when they sit down in front of me and they say they want to see change, they're not really wanting a diet. They're not really wanting the most perfect fitness program, because they can go on the internet. I always tell people, just go into Google, find a meal plan. It'll probably be a good one. You'll lose weight on it. You can probably do some squats, deadlifts, and some swings, and you'll be fine. But what they're actually looking for is sustainability, because most people have had a boom and bust approach to health, and it's often their environment that is dictating their behavior. And in a world where we cannot control what Sainsbury's puts on offer, what your friends are going to be cooking, what the restaurant's percentage of fat in their sauces, what your job is always going to deliver to you. You can't always control those things. You can control how you react to them. You can't control that they're going to happen. We have to build a series of habits and behaviors that will allow us to have a kind of, to create a sense of character, and character will tell us how to react to those situations. So rather than being a victim to them, we have a strong character built by habits, which then allows us to then create long-standing change. And through long-standing change, we have to fundamentally change the way we behave, and that goes down to habits. I once had a lady, she said to me, she did what I call a 10-day challenge. And 10-day challenge is built on the principles of 3 meals a day, healthy snacks. Every plate was constructed with a palm of protein, a fist of carbohydrates, fist of vegetables, and a thumb of fat. And that's what they just did for 10 days. Most people would lose up to like 5 or 6 pounds in 10 days. And she didn't. She was like someone who'd struggled to lose weight for the whole of her life. And she was suddenly losing weight. And she said, but I'm going to have to be vigilant for the rest of my life, aren't I? And I'm like, well, you kind of got to do the things that are working forever in order for them to work. You see, I used to be overweight, and I am still vigilant. But the difference between my vigilance and her vigilance is that my vigilance has been created into habits, which now I don't have to constantly be aware of. I have to tend to them, I have to manage them, and I have to invest in them through repetition, but I don't have to build them because they're there. They're institutions, like governments, like countries. We have institutions which hold the fabric of society together, which do in times of war. The coronavirus didn't destroy our economy completely. We're not all destitute because we have financial institutions, we have NHS, we have all those things. And if we see our kind of character as a set of institutions, those institutions will become stronger over time through investing in them, so they can deal with storms and deal with massive life changes. Because if your holidays get you off track, or if a birthday or one day or one night out and a meal out throw you off and you go, I failed tonight, so I'm just going to go back to old habits, then you haven't really invested in change and character and habits. And kind of what we do as health professionals and it's certainly how I've evolved my business. On one hand, there's the marketing about diet, weight loss and stuff like that. But then the reality is that I have to move someone onto a sustainable approach to building habits.
Excellent.
Yeah. What you said there about like everything you said there was great, but like the band, like the band writing hit songs, or it's like writers who don't write and just waiting for inspiration. Anyone who's waiting for inspiration is going to be waiting a long time. And you might get one day when it goes like bang, like you say, and then it's like, oh, right, I've got something. But then the next day it's gone again or whatever.
Well, I was always amazed by the Beatles. Have you seen that documentary on them live? I know we're going back into music. We did David Bowie before. Now we're on Rolling Stones next week. So, but they were on tour, and you look at their crazy lifestyle, how crazy their touring life was. I mean, it was insane. But they still wrote hundreds of songs. And they're some of the best songs ever. But whilst grabbing 3 or 4 hours here and there in hotel rooms. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, so the thing with that is, and that's why it's really good that we do this, and we're putting it out there and having a chat, because it just opens up a discussion. So, the best bands and the best writers and all that are the people who just go out and talk and go to places and put themselves in situations where they'll have different viewpoints and they'll different things and have different conversations. Also going outside of their own genre or industry or whatever. You just look for inspiration within that. People who want to get in shape, maybe just come in and think, right, well, I need to diet and exercise. It's like, well, you do, but also look at it in other different ways. What can you fit into your own lifestyle without all of that? And exercise could be just like I said, going out and taking the dog for a walk or something like that. So, it's finding it's finding ways of slotting it in without you even having to do a lot. And that is what I find the best. It's because people think they need to make all these changes. It's like, no, you don't. Go for a walk at lunchtime at work. And when people say they haven't got time to do that, I use the excuse of, right, especially for blokes, because they take longer, just say you're going for a poo. Because that'll take you 20 minutes, right? So you can go for a walk for 20 minutes. No, but you know what I mean? Silly little thing like that. You can just go out and go for a walk for 20 minutes, come back, and you're going to feel better. And it doesn't, and people might say, oh, but I'd work on an industrial estate or something like that. It's not very picturesque. It's like, it doesn't matter. Just go for a walk. Go for a walk and think, meditate while you're walking. Just switch off. And you'll clear your head, and then all of a sudden everything is less overwhelming. And you haven't got all this stuff that you need to do. Therefore, you can fit in more time for yourself to look after yourself. So
if you say you're too busy, the reality is you are not very good at managing your time.
Exactly.
But that's a hard lesson to have. I mean, there are times when I'm too busy and it's my fault. It's not.
You told us it was after the podcast last week, wasn't it? Or the week before, about your business mentor who's got 3 businesses and 7 kids and all of that. And that's just
he's he's stateside. He's got 7 children, a couple of them under the age of 3. One of them are twins. He runs 3 gyms now. He has his coaching business as well. And he's only a couple of years older than we are. And he's been through COVID. He's been through all that. Yeah. And his level of organization is another level. And I mean, and it is admired. And for me, I'm, you could be intimidated by that. But it's amazing, I'm always amazed.
The way I look at that is, I wouldn't want that, right? Because that just sounds that sounds like a nightmare to me. However, what it does mean is, if he can manage his lifestyle like that, mine's way easier than that. So therefore, it's easy. It's I get overwhelmed sometimes. And honestly, I've got the simplest life you've ever seen, and I get overwhelmed. It's ridiculous, because your mind will do that. If you haven't got much time to focus your mind on, you'll create problems. And I've learned that.
I think it's good that. Create your own problems. I think a lot of people think that maybe their problems aren't important enough.
Yeah.
And stress is stress. You don't have to have 7 children to be stressed. You don't have to have any children to be stressed. I mean, stress hits people in different ways. And there's loads of different stresses in the world. And it's about treating those things as legitimate things that need to be looked at or attended to. And my job is not to say that that problem's less important than that problem. It's about seeing that where do we want to go and what systems are going to take us there. And before this podcast, I talked about the quote from James Clear, which I really like, which is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Yeah. And most people will come to us with a goal, which is weight loss, which is, inverted commas, happiness, or whatever it is, body confidence. But when you ask them what do you think you need to do in order to achieve that, there is a real disconnect. And what I suppose I spend a lot of time doing, and it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, James, we're there putting in place the building blocks to take people there. Those blocks can be interchanged depending on the individual and the time frame. But we want to be doing it efficiently, and we rely on habits. I mean, with you particularly, James, I mean, when I first started my business, I came round to you, we had a chat, and what I was always interested in is just your demographic. I mean, you're working 40 plus, and one of the things we all know about as we age is that we get stuck in our ways. We get very entrenched in ways of thinking, I don't like music of today, or I don't like this, or I'm old, I can't do this, I can't do that, I've always done it like this. And a grumpy old man is just a collection of habits and behaviors. That grumpy old man could be a different collection of behaviors to make him a happy old man, So, I mean, how do you work with your clients when they come in and they're kind of may have spent 30 years in a very particular manner of working that's not working?
Are you saying all James's clients are grumpy bastards?
No, I know what you mean.
I'm turning into one. That's what I'm saying.
Careful now. You're going to alienate people from this.
I'll answer, but I was going to say that from what you two guys were both talking about there, I think you've kind of touched on I suppose kind of a belief that many people who maybe will come to see us have, that in order to make a change or to make a big difference, they have to do everything perfectly, and they have to suddenly become perfect overnight, and this whole radical sort of lifestyle overhaul. And I've had this, I'm sure you guys may have done as well, where someone will come to you and they'll say, yeah, I'm going to be exercising 2 or 3 times a week. I'm going to be trying to, be more healthy with my food. But then they'll say, in 6 weeks' time, I've got a friend's 40th birthday. So that's going to really, ruin it, and they kind of, they go that, thinking, and it's just trying to get people to understand that, like you said, Paul, is if you're building a character and a habits and a stronger, I suppose, a constitution or whatever you want to call it, there's flexibility allowed within that, because like we all know, what you do occasionally doesn't really define you or change you that much. It's what you do habitually, isn't it? So if habitually you're living well and you're exercising and you're walking and you're drinking your water and you're getting good sleep and you're trying to manage your stress, if, twice a month you go out for a curry with some friends, it's not the end of the world. And people need to realize that it's not about being perfect. So one of the things, talking about the kind of guys that we see and ladies that we see, it's starting really, really small. I had a guy who came to see us, and literally all we did every time he went to, and this is really the heart of habits, I suppose, anytime he went to a Starbucks or a Costa or a Cafe Nero or whatever, all these chain places, he'd always get a latte, and if you can just make the first change of, I'm going to get like a black Americano or something, and especially if people are doing this regularly throughout the week, because a lot of people, they duck into these coffee shops, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, and it's something so simple like that, if they can do something like that to begin with, or like I say, the pint of water before waking up. The other thing is, you get people certainly, and again, and this one's a lot more maybe ladies in their, their 50s, which is, a glass of wine in the evening, or a couple of glasses of wine in the evening, you know, and that's potentially, you know, 7 days a week, you know, and maybe a bit more at weekends, you know. So if you can, even to begin with, just say, well, how about not, you know, not drinking on, you know, a Monday or a Monday and a Tuesday, and you gradually, it's so gradual, because it's these creeping changes that you hardly notice. And when we develop habits, we develop them in a creeping sort of way that we don't notice we're even developing them as a habit. I think we discussed before at some stage at the start of lockdown, sitting down at the end of the evening and having a beer. And then before you know it, you've done it for the last 10, 14 days. And it is becoming a habit, and it's recognizing that and breaking it very, very small.
The thing with that specifically, having like wine or beer in the evening, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but then the habit comes out of, as well, this is what I think, and this used to happen to me, is you think it's only one or two, but then the next morning you're tired. So the rest of the next day you're tired and stressed. So then you have another one. So if it's only one or two, it doesn't matter. But actually you get worse sleep. So it accumulates. So it's not just like weight gain and stuff like that, or extra calories. It accumulates as stress and all that other stuff, and you don't even realize that because you think it's one or two. And then it turns into like...
the sleep is definitely affected. I mean, I talk to members who, you know, like you say, and a lot of people now, probably the same with you guys, they've got that we're now tracking more than ever, you know, on smartphones and apps and Apple Watches and stuff. And you know, people are tracking their sleep, and they can look and say, oh, this is how much sleep I got. And they know that when they start, if they eat late at night or if they drink in the evening, the sleep quality they have is not as good. So really, we've got all the technology now, you know, more than we can ever need, you know, but people are really embracing this technology with Fitbits and all the rest of it. So there's clear kind of markers and evidence there that, like you say, one or two, it will have an effect, especially if it becomes one or two every day and a bit more at the weekends, which it does for many people.
Yeah. So what?
Oh, Paul's going to jump in, I think. Sorry.
No, I mean, I wanted to pick on something in a way that's kind of underlying all of this, really, which is there's another quote. I always like quotes because they do sum things up, and it's like, show me where you spend your time and I'll show you what's important to you.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when we come down to it, we have to ask a question: do you want it? You know, we all need to work because we want to be paid. If we don't show up to work, we don't get paid, and we quite quickly become aware of the impact of that. And with health, it can creep, and it can take 10 years. Many people are very, very not happy, but that society gives us this impression that we're supposed to fall apart as we age. And so we just expect to be in a state of disrepair. The thing is like, you've got to suddenly ask yourself, where does my health sit in my value system? Because then you need to assign the time to it that it deserves. Now, if you tell me it's number one on your list alongside your children because you know that it bolsters your family and stuff, but you only given it, then it goes back to that question, but I don't have any time. Then is it truly that important? And just be honest with yourself. If you don't want to make time for it, it's not number one. And just make peace with that. And perhaps you'll be happier with that. Maybe you'll be happier because you're just like, well, yeah, maybe it's not that important. That's cool. We don't have to work together. You do your own thing. But if it is, it's like, well, then the question becomes like, if that goal is exactly what you say it is, and its placement in your value system is exactly where you say it is, you've got to dedicate the time. Because if you did that to your children, they would be, you know, they wouldn't be brought up properly. You know, if your children are not important, you don't dedicate any time to them, then you know, they're either not that important, which most people would not admit, and they obviously are, but, you know, just be honest with yourself. And that's not always easy. And particularly in my job, you know, sometimes I don't think that hard, tough love thing works most of the time. I don't think it does, really. I mean, I think sometimes people need wake-up calls, but we don't need wake-up calls all the time. But we do need sometimes to be honest with ourselves, you know, and sometimes asking that question and just saying, look, you know, I'll leave it with you, but you wrestle with it and come back to me, you know.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, if people aren't prepared to do some really small things to begin with, you know, it's, again, quotes, you know, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. You know what I mean? So unless people are prepared to make some kind of changes, nothing's going to change. I'm aware that we've kind of been talking for a little while now, and it's been really interesting, actually. I mean, it's been fantastic. I'd love to from next week. Hopefully, we'll start getting some guests on and stuff, and I'd love to speak to your coach on here, Paul. It'd be great if we could potentially get him on. But you know, a whole podcast around you know, personal organisation and time management and that sort of thing would be great for people, I think. What I want to do, I just want to quickly leave you with a few kind of books and things that I've read on this, and I know you've read as well, Paul, I think. So just if people are interested in what we spoke about and habits and that sort of thing. So there's a great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and Paul referenced a quote from James Clear earlier on. There's High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard as well, which is good. The first business type book I ever read, going back about 15 years or so, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, it's quite a meaty book, but that's really about how to, you know, running your whole life, really. And then also touching upon what both of you said earlier around if you wait till you're inspired or motivated, you'll never do anything, is the kind of Jocko Willink sort of discipline equals freedom stuff, and actually making yourself take action, and then it's the action that will actually then create the habits. And if you sit around waiting for this, you know, divine motivation to kind of appear above your head one day before you exercise, no one would ever exercise. So yeah, just a few books there for you. I think, Peter, you were going to mention a system or a process that you go through with your guys, weren't you?
Yeah, I'll do that very quickly. We've got a couple of minutes left, so I'll do that very quickly. It's very simple. You just ask yourself a couple of questions. So every Sunday, my guys check in. I get them to check in. I say, right. I get them to write down 3 wins a day. And I say, what's your biggest win of the week? Okay, so they tell me. Now, for the wins, they'll write down what the win is, why it's a win. But then it'll say, right, so how are you going to take that forwards? What is the next step? So it might be, I did 3 sessions this week. I don't know, right? We'll just use that as an example. I did 3 sessions this week. Okay, that's a win. Why is it a win? Well, because I feel better. It'll make me stronger. It'll make me fitter, blah, 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 blah. It's a habit. Da, 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 da. Okay, what's the next step? They might go, well, I'll do 3 next week. Brilliant, right? Will you? So the bit after that is, what's the specific next step? Schedule them in. Put them in your planner. Put them in, so you will do them. Slot the time in, and then all of a sudden you've done that. And then next week you might have to do it again, and then do it again. And then after 4 weeks, it's something that you're like, oh, on a Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning, I do my session. This is what I do. So and we do that every week. And then the next question is, what's the one thing that you need to do next week? So it might be the same again, but they might be like, right, well, that's a habit now. So the one thing I need to do next week is, I don't know, cook from scratch for 2 meals or something like that. And then it's like, right, let's do that then. And if you do that, that's a win. How are you going to take it forward? Write down 3 a day. When people say they don't have wins, I'm like, that's not true. Because just getting up in the morning's a win, let's face it. Or even like making your bed in the morning, or I had a pint of water every morning, or whatever, or I went for a walk. Those are wins. Even it doesn't matter what else has happened during the week. So it's as simple as that. So biggest win, why was it a win? Next step, what are you specifically going to do about it? And then what's the one thing you need to do this week, just one thing this week, to progress you onto the next habit, or to make this habit stick. And it's as simple as that.
Excellent. No, it's fantastic. It's a great process. And like you say, that then even the process of doing that becomes part of the system and part of, a habit, doesn't it? And it's something that it becomes part of people's lives and part of their character, which is which is fantastic. Yeah, really
all of these things take 2 minutes. We'll get them to do it on a Sunday, and it takes 2 minutes. You know, and like you say, it becomes a habit. They expect it on a Sunday. Like if I'm a bit late with it, like you haven't asked us what our check-in is yet, and it's like, okay, give us a minute. You know, so yeah. So there we go.
Excellent. How about yourself, Paul? Do you want to finish off with something or leave?
Yeah, I mean, I always think, go. I mean, I always try and get my clients to do diary management. I say, look at your week going ahead. Are there going to be any challenging days in which you need to prepare your food in advance? You know, book in your sessions, make sure you block the time before and after, and just be in control of your time. Otherwise, someone else will take control of it. So that is the simple thing that I try and get, because I know that if they're in the session, then they're going to work hard, but I've got to get them there. And generally it means they've just got to do some forward thinking, and habits are an excellent way of providing a safety net, because you start doing things automatically, like brushing your teeth or whatever. And you've just got to start building that practice. Assign a certain amount of time each week to plan your food, prep your food, come up with recipes, book in your sessions, manage your calendar, get an Outlook calendar, whatever you need to do. It could be in your diary, it could be on your phone, whatever. And then there's a good book I'd like to recommend called Peak, by the guy who came up with the 10,000 hour rule. But it's not like the Malcolm Gladwell one. I think it's better researched. And it's basically about purposeful practice. Whenever we want to become an expert in anything, it's not just about putting hours in. That's important, you know, but it's about having purposeful practice. And he also talks about systems. And when you look at some of the most effective methods of taking, say, a child to an adult as an expert, as an adult, like ballet, gymnastics, concert violin, piano, all of these have systems and grading systems that get people from that start position to a level of expertise. Marketing, you know, just more esoteric things. They don't have established systems that create experts. Not in the way that gymnastics does, not in the way that ballet does. Ballet has a very focused system of purposeful practice that will get you to an end result. And if you can borrow some of those things in your own health, purposeful practice in terms of nutrition means you are on a journey from novice to expert, not on a diet. You are on skill acquisition, okay? And that is going to give you a much better sense of your trajectory and where you are than thinking about whether or not you're good or bad, whether you've failed your diet, you're on a diet, whatever. It's saying, well, I'm a novice, and I'm moving towards expertise, but I need to have in place habits and systems that will get me there. And that's what I would ask people to do, is start researching methodologies or looking for people who offer that kind of approach. Because even if it's not the perfect workout, even if it's not the perfect diet, if they are instilling in you the change of character and habits, that's going to give you that step up that you currently probably don't have. And it will also give you a more positive outlook on your own journey.
Exactly. So it's kind of there. You're kind of almost saying you've got to be willing to be a beginner, because like people want to just jump straight in, don't they? It's like, no, just start where you're at and move. Yeah,
I don't want to give you a 100-kilo bench press on your first day.
No, exactly. I saw a thing. Let's finish with this. I saw a thing a while ago, right? And it was about people who lifting heavy weights who think they're going to get bulky, right? And it said, that's like saying I'm going to start making my own food. I'm going to start cooking from scratch, but I don't want to because I might turn into a Michelin star chef. Anyway. It's the same thing, isn't it? But there we go. Right, we'll leave it there because we've kept you guys long enough. I've written down all those books, so I will I'll write them into the show notes, and they'll go into wherever, like all the places this podcast goes. So give us a like, give us a share, and all that. We're all over. Well, you'll hear on the outro. We're everywhere. So there we go. Right then. So James, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
He's waving again.
I said goodbye as well. I said goodbye and waved. Okay.
Yeah, I've memorized my lines this time. It's goodbye, yeah?
It's goodbye, yes. Well done. Well done.
Okay.
We'll love it. Right. Thank you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favourite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.